Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be reading about rape myths, and I might break this up into multiple videos. It just depends because there are 7 pages in this, and so definitely let me know if you guys, after you watch this video, if you have a preference of the length of videos that you prefer. Please let me know, and I'm going to try to get back to where this was. Okay. So a rape myth is an attitude and belief that is generally false but widely and persistently held, and that serves to deny and justify sexual violence, particularly men's sexual violence against women. Rape myths can be divided into 3 basic types. 1. Myths about the assault itself. 2. Myths pertaining to the victim, and 3. Myths relating to the offender. Below is an overview of some common rape myths, followed by counter-arguments. The assault. The myth: rape results from an uncontrollable sexual urge of biological origin. Men rape impulsively out of biological need or evolutionary programming. Quote unquote, he just couldn't help himself. The counter-argument: rape is a crime of power, where controlling another person's sexual decisions is the objective. This control may be expressed as women are there for men's pleasure, and thus they should do what I want. Or implicit, like it's too late for her to tell me no now, I'm already too excited. This desire cannot be blamed on or excused by some sort of biological need or evolutionary trait. Almost 50% of convicted rapists were married or had potential sexual partners at the time of their offenses. Research has shown that the majority of rapes are planned, not impulsive, and most men do not commit rape, nor do they have the desire to commit rape. The next myth: most people are reported to the police. The counter-argument: only 16% of rapes actually get reported, according to a study conducted by the National Victim Center and Crime Victims Research and Treatment Center in 1992. Another myth: husbands cannot rape their wives. Counter-argument: rape occurs whenever a sexual act is performed without the freely given, for example, not induced by threat, intoxication, etc. And so rape occurs whenever there is a sexual act without freely giving consent of both partners. No relationship between the individuals can excuse such behavior or override any lack of consent. Virginia law does not make any evidentiary distinction for marriage, and some who rape their spouse can receive the same maximum punishment as a case where the perpetrator and victim have never met. Another myth: because of a few violent incidents, the issue of rape tends to be overblown. It's not really that big of a problem. The counter-argument: the estimated lifetime prevalence of rape and attempted rape is between 21 and 27% for women in industrialized nations. Using different methodology, the National Institute of Justice under the U.S. Department of Justice found that approximately 1 in 5 women in the United States experienced rape or attempted rape at some point in their lives. The definition of rape they used included forced vaginal, oral, or anal intercourse. In a survey conducted by the Virginia Department of Health in 2003, found that lifetime prevalence of sexual assaults in Virginia was 27.6% among females and 12.9% among males. Another myth: most rapes occur outside. They are perpetuated by someone who the victim does not know, who jumps out of the bushes wielding a weapon and commits the rape with a large degree of physical force and overt violence. The counter-argument: over 50% of rapes occur in a residence, and in over 80% of rapes, the victim knows the attacker. The VDH study cited in the above myth, in fact, showed that 88% of female victims and 79% of male victims knew the person who perpetrated against them. Also, most rapists do not use any weapon except their greater physical size and weight in intimidation and or overpowering their victims. Alcohol is also frequently used to lessen the victim's ability to resist. Most rapists only use as much force as necessary to hold their victims still and achieve penetration. Myth: men cannot be raped. Counter-argument: men, both heterosexual and gay, can be and are raped, usually by heterosexual men. Although the research findings on this are still unclear, it is estimated that between 5% and 10% of men will be the victims of sexual assault in their lifetime. Of rape victims, the U.S. Department of Justice found that over 9% are male. Here's some myths about the victim. So that was myths about the assault. And now we're going to move on to myths about the victim. Myth: when a woman says no, she is just playing hard to get, and she really means yes. The counter argument here is, if you are like me, you do not have the ability to read another person's mind. If a person says no, then that is all one can know about what sexual acts are okay with him or her. It should not be assumed that they really mean yes. If it is unclear as to whether or not consent exists, then it is the responsibility of the person initiating the sexual act to ask. Just to be clear, if neither a yes or no has been said, the person initiating the sexual act must ask. Many rapists have used the defense, "Come on, I knew she really wanted it. She was just putting on a show so that I didn't think she was too easy or slutty." One can only be sure what another person wants if they ask, a practice conspicuously absent from rapists. Regardless of what one person thinks another person wants, one cannot be sure until their partner communicates their desires clearly. Everyone has the right to control what happens to their own bodies. Excuse me. Another myth: sexual assault only happens to careless people who are quote unquote asking for it by the way they dress or where they are. Counter-argument: rape is a crime that often causes an indescribable amount of pain and suffering for the victim. Over 82% of randomly sampled rape survivors in the US said that the rape permanently changed their lives, and over 30% of rape victims contemplate suicide in the aftermath of rape. No one asks for this to happen to them. All kinds of people, young, old, rich, poor, black, white, straight, gay, male, and female, are sexually assaulted in all kinds of situations. The idea that victims provoke assault by their behavior assumes that they have no right to be as free as you or I. Even if you think a victim made poor decisions, bad judgment is not a rapeable offense. The quote-unquote asking for it myth shifts the blame from the perpetrator to the victim of this crime. The underlying motivation for engaging in this myth is often so that one can feel more secure. If the rapes happen because of something the victims are doing, then one can convince themselves that they can keep rape from happening to them by acting or not acting a certain way. This myth makes rape seem more controllable. In actuality, however, the decision to rape is completely in the hands of the rapist. Only the rapist can control whether or not a rape is initiated against a potential victim, and thus responsibility for rape falls firmly on the rapist's shoulders. This is why sexual assault is never the victim's fault, and no one deserves to be raped. Another myth: if a person agrees to some degree of sexual intimacy, then he or she is willing to, quote unquote, go all the way. Counter-argument: Any person has the right to agree to any degree of sexual intimacy they feel comfortable with at that moment, and to not go any further if they do not wish to. A person may feel comfortable with one kind of sexual activity, but not with another. If he or she may decide at any time that he or she is not really ready for further intimacy. Another myth: nice girls don't get raped. Bad girls shouldn't complain. Counter-argument: this is similar to the just discussed, quote-unquote, the victim must have been asking for it myth, except that it focuses more on the extent of a victim's sexual experience. Like the asking for it myth, it serves to make people more secure by making rape seem more controllable. It also serves to punish women who like having sex more frequently by denying them sexual autonomy or the right to make their own sexual decisions. This is a particularly damning sentiment, and it plays into a double standard that is rampant in our culture. If a woman enjoys sex and is open about her enjoyment, then she is often labeled as quote-unquote easy. However, it is considered somewhat normal for men to be open about enjoying sex. Furthermore, men who have had many sexual partners are never called sluts, but rather complimentary terms like player. If women were allowed to only or to openly express their sexuality in whatever amount they individually see fit, then so many of the other rape myths would become mute. Defense attorneys could no longer argue, quote unquote, she may have said no, but that was just because she didn't want to appear easy. The media would have no interest in focusing on details like the quote unquote alleged perpetrator and victim were seen flirting in a bar just hours before the rape. These distractions would no longer carry any weight because there would be no longer a perception that women should always try to hide any sexual feelings that they might have. Another myth: women who don't fight back or scream must secretly want to be raped. Counter-argument: most men are larger and stronger than most women. Also, many women are raised to avoid or calm tense or violent situations. These two factors combined with the fact that a rapist will frequently ignore and possibly forcefully retaliate against any hint of an initial protest by the victim provides great insight into why some victims do not put up an outward struggle. It is important to note that some victims may use more inwardly directed strategies to psychologically cope with the rape as it is happening. For instance, many victims will say that they just closed their eyes and prayed for it to be over. They make their mind go somewhere else so that they did not have to experience the rape. Another myth: people often lie about being raped. Counter-argument: it is virtually impossible to know the frequency of false rape reports. However, one should consider that it takes a tremendous amount of courage to come forward and report a rape. Besides risking a social stigma of being quote-unquote damaged goods, victims also tend to worry about how their friends, family, and romantic partner will react. Many victims do not come forward for fear that a father, brother, or boyfriend will go out and try to get revenge, possibly ending up injured or incarcerated. Teenage and college-aged victims may worry that their parents will blame them for drinking if alcohol was involved and or become overprotective and restrictive of their freedom. Victims of acquaintance rape may also face harsh reprisals from their social group, who will either side strongly with the victim or strongly with the perpetrator, who is often from the same social group. Also, the victim risks having their behavior ruthlessly scrutinized by the general public if the case attracts any media attention. Given this range of backlash against people bringing forward a charge of rape, it would be surprising if a rape report... Sorry about that. It is virtually impossible to know the frequency of rape false rape reports. However, one should consider that it takes a tremendous amount of courage to come forward and report a rape. Besides risking a social stigma of being quote-unquote damaged goods, victims also tend to worry about how their friends, family, and romantic partner will react. Many victims do not come forward for fear that a father, brother, or boyfriend will go out and try to get revenge, possibly ending up injured or incarcerated. Teenage and college-age victims may worry that their parents will blame them for drinking if alcohol was involved, and or become overprotective and restrictive of their freedom. Victims of acquaintance rape may also face harsh reprisals from their social group, who will either side strongly with the victim or strongly with the perpetrator, who is often from the same social group. Also, the victim risks having their behavior ruthlessly scrutinized by the general public if the case attracts any media attention. Given this range of backlash against people bringing forward a charge of rape, it would be surprising if rape reports were more than a rare occurrence. Another myth: no person could survive a rape without at least losing their sanity. Counterargument: while it is true that rape will likely permanently alter the life of a survivor, this does not mean that the rape will cause some sort of living death sentence. The psychological trauma of rape can be healed in time, and the survivor can go on to lead a happy and satisfying life. A rape survivor needs support, understanding, and the opportunity to deal with the aftermath of the rape, sometimes with the help of a counselor or with the help of other people who have gone through a similar experience. Another myth: a prostitute will be traumatized, or a prostitute will not be traumatized by rape. After all, having sex is her job. Counterargument: a sexual assault can be just as traumatic to an experienced prostitute as to anyone else, and he or she has as much right to treatment, protection, and justice. Remember, rape is a crime of power, not simply a sexual act gone awry. It can be just as painful for a prostitute to experience a loss of control over her body and her sexual decisions as a virgin. Another myth: sexual assault is impossible without some cooperation from the victim, aka it's hard to thread a moving needle theory. Counterargument: many rapists are willing to use all of the force necessary to accomplish penetration, even when it is physically injurious to the victim. In cases where the victim does not resist out of fear or for some other reason, her submission is not the same as cooperation. If she chooses to cooperate because of the rapist's threats on her or others, her cooperation is not the same as consent. And the last myth in the list of myths for the victim: in a rape, the person who is raped is the only one who suffers. Counterargument: sexual assault affects the victim's family, friends, and neighbors. The fear of sexual assault affects all women. Watching the survivor go through the aftermath of a rape commonly causes immense pain, and everyone close to the survivor, particularly romantic partners. It is also the most costly crime in our society. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the crime of sexual assault costs America $127 billion every year. Combined medical and mental health care, police and EMS response, and social victim services costs. Excludes costs of investigation, prosecution, and incarceration. And that has got to get better. The offender. Myth: a large percentage of rapes are interracial, or an example here: black men raping white women. Counterargument: FBI statistics have shown that less than 10% of reported rapes are interracial, although the exact percentage varies according to the area. This myth has become less prevalent with the rise of more egalitarian relationships between whites and blacks. See most recent uniform crime reports. Myth: most rapists are insane. Counterargument: although some rapists have been shown to have hyper-masculine tendencies and or a propensity toward violence, Most are not suffering from any diagnosable psychological disorder. Most rapists seem very normal in their day-to-day behavior. Another myth: men who rape other men are gay. Counterargument: the vast majority of males who assault other males are heterosexual. Men and women are assaulted for basically the same reasons, so that the assailant can vent their hostility or feel a sense of power or control the situation to his desired outcome. It is important to note that a fear or disdain for homosexuality ironically motivates some men to rape gay men. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Remember that if you or someone you know is a victim to domestic violence or bullying or sexual assault or rape, help is available 24/7 at the domestic violence hotline listed in the description down below. Remember to stay safe out there, and I'll see you soon.